Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says he believes he can salvage his relationship with Donald Trump despite their explosive meeting in the Oval Office on Friday. Zelenskyy was speaking after a summit of European leaders in London aimed at drumming up support for Ukraine. The gathering ended with proposals to achieve a peace plan, including forming a coalition of nations willing to send peacekeepers to the country.
As British Prime Minister Keir Starmer welcomed Volodymyr Zelenskyy and the leaders of more than a dozen countries, there was a sense of urgency for Europe to take more responsibility for ending the war in Ukraine and to protect against future Russian aggression.
We will go further to develop a coalition of the willing to defend a deal in Ukraine and to guarantee the peace. Not every nation will feel able to contribute, but that can't mean that we sit back. The UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air. Together with others, Europe must do the heavy lifting.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte made clear other European nations would also deploy peacekeeping troops to Ukraine.
To make sure that Putin will never, ever again try to attack Ukraine post a ceasefire/peace deal, then obviously it means that you will have Europeans active in Ukraine to make sure that that peace is kept.
Efforts were also announced for European countries to rearm in order to defend their own borders.
After a long time of underinvestment, it is now of utmost importance to step up the defense investment for a prolonged period of time.
Even as European leaders appeared steadfast in their new resolve, the focus shifted back to the United States.
Rightly, the Americans are saying, hey, you guys are talking about how to maintain a ceasefire/peace deal, but first we have to make sure that we get there. And they are right on that, but at the same time we have to do this in parallel to make sure that we stand ready.
To succeed, this effort must have strong US backing. We're working with the US on this point after my meeting with President Trump last week. And let me be clear, we agree with the President on the urgent need for a durable peace. Now we need to deliver together.
Thank you.
With a plan underway, it will fall to Volodymyr Zelenskyy and Donald Trump to find their way back to negotiating their own deal.
Here's a quick recap of the summit's results as Keir Starmer presented them. Firstly, Starmer said European nations will keep military aid to Ukraine flowing and step up economic pressure on Russia. Leaders also agreed that any lasting peace must ensure Ukraine's sovereignty and security, and Ukraine must be at the table. Third, in the event of a peace deal, governments will keep boosting Ukraine's defence capabilities to deter any future invasion. And fourth, they will develop a coalition of the willing to defend a deal in Ukraine and to guarantee peace. Well, before leaving Britain, Zelenskyy told reporters that he was still willing to sign a deal giving the US access to Ukraine's critical minerals that Trump has been demanding.
The mineral agreement is ready. It took time, there were many different versions, but the last one is ready, and the ministers can sign it. I, as president, have said everywhere that it can be done, and my position hasn't changed. Our policy is to continue despite of what happened in the past. We're constructive, we agreed on signing it, we were ready to sign it. And honestly, I think the US will be ready to sign it now as well.
I'd like to welcome Angela Stent now, Senior Fellow at the Brookings Institution and author of the book Putin's World, Russia Against the West and With the Rest. Welcome to you, ma'am. Now, this meeting in London was intended to shore up support for Ukraine. Do you think it succeeded in doing that?
Well, it certainly has shored up European support for Ukraine and the determination of some, obviously not all European countries, to give more assistance to Ukraine and to have boots on the ground if there is indeed a ceasefire and some kind of a peace settlement. So in that sense, I must have been a very welcome relief to President Zelensky after the reception he received in Washington on Friday.
Let's talk a little bit more about that and how this is all being taken by the Trump administration, this London summit, of course. Now, we saw peace talks, this initiative by the White House being blown off course by the Oval Office meltdown. So how's the London summit being perceived in Washington, do you think?
Well, I mean, I think Trump is still determined to negotiate with Putin on his own. And Putin, by the way, is determined to meet with Trump, to have sanctions removed, to normalize relations with the U.S. I don't think he's particularly interested in a peace deal. But I think from Trump's point of view, he'll negotiate with Putin. If the Europeans want to do something afterwards, if there is a peace deal and have troops, boots on the ground in Ukraine, then that's up to them. But I doubt that this is going to really change how much they will be included in these negotiations, because I didn't hear from Keir Starmer whether any Europeans are proposing to negotiate with Russia.
So you're saying Trump wants to negotiate with Putin on his own. Do you think then Trump is not interested in finding a joint solution with Zelensky and the Europeans?
Well, he has never said that he was going to include either Zelensky or the Europeans in these negotiations. Right. What he wants from Zelensky at the moment is a minerals deal. But he's always said that this was going to be a U.S.-Russian negotiation.
Do you think this minerals deal is still going to happen? We just heard from Zelensky. He's saying he would still be willing to sign it. Do you think it's going to happen?
I think it's quite possible that it will happen. It may not be immediately. I think President Zelensky will probably have to, in some sense, apologize, even though, of course, he's done that before, but and reiterate his gratitude to the U.S. That was clear from the meeting on Friday. But I think that the U.S. side is still interested in this minerals agreement.
Let's talk a little bit more about what was agreed in London, this proposal to form a coalition of the willing to defend a possible peace settlement in Ukraine. How would this work if the US is not part of that?
It would be very difficult because, Prime Minister Starmer did say that the British would provide air power, but they really need, if there were European boots on the ground there, they really do need U.S. backup for this, probably U.S. air power. And I think without that, it would be difficult. And so far, the Trump administration has given no indication that it would be willing to back up a European peace force there. And I think we mustn't forget that Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov of Russia has said that they won't accept any European troops if there is a ceasefire. No country that's a member of NATO will be allowed to be there.
Now, just finally, there are people in Trump's inner circle who are calling for Zelensky's resignation. Do you think he should resign, or do you think he should instead go back maybe a little bit cap in hand to the White House?
Well, I certainly don't think he should resign. He's led his country in an admirable way since the Russian invasion. The irony is that Putin invaded Ukraine partly because he wanted regime change there and to get rid of Zelensky, and to have U.S. Officials now saying Zelensky should resign is quite ironic. No, I think he has to stay there and lead the country. It's under martial law. And eventually, if there is a peace, then there will be elections. But until then, he should remain in power.
Great to get your insights today. That's Professor Angela Stent from the Brookings Institution and author of the book Putin's World. Thank you very much.
Thank you.